Good morning, everyone. And once again, thank you very much for joining our session. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the sectoral sessions of the Ethical Pitch Accelerator program. Before we start the technical component of this session, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules with you. I would like kindly request everyone to keep their microphones muted and share any questions you may have during our Q&A sessions. We do have an event registration form for the day, which we will share with you on the chat box. Please take a minute and fill it. EthicalX is an initiative by Slyke and Trust implemented in partnership with the Ministry of Trade, the Sri Lanka Accreditation Board, the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, strategic partners, Raw Digital, and Region Villages. Starting off with the sectoral sessions, we have the Fashion Week with two of our entrepreneurs to share their inspiration journey to becoming an entrepreneur and inspiration behind their ethical, sustainable, and climate-friendly brand. Ms. Draupadie Weerapperuma, founder of Majä, a new story, and Ms. Joanne Stoker, founder of Noad Store. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Joanne Stoker to share her story with the participants. Over to you, Ms. Joanne.
What you can see is okay. Hi, good morning, everybody. So yeah, my name's Joanne. I'm from the, I have a brand called Noad Store, which I've set up in Sri Lanka about two years ago now. Just click that. So I'm going to switch to sharing the screen while I talk. So let me get that on there so I can kind of show you what I'm up to. Okay, so just checking everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I started a brand called Noad Store in Sri Lanka 2 years ago, and predominantly through the lockdown, which was mainly the reason why I started it. Actually, is I've started to work with a few ladies making clothes personally for myself, rather than buying things here, because obviously you can. There's a lot more field in terms of like fabrics available. I lived in London previously, and before that, there's a lot more ladies who can stitch and sew here. But then the lockdown came. I found these ladies out of work, and the Noad Store kind of developed from there. But from an entrepreneurial background, this is not the first foot into fashion for me. So the reason why I came to Sri Lanka is firstly, I teach at AOD, Academy of Design. I teach fashion design there. So I was the head of the fashion department for a few years. So I've been in Sri Lanka for 6 years now, but I've also worked in the fashion industry for over 20 years. I studied fashion design at university in England. I then had a footwear brand. I went on to do a master's in shoe design. And I had a footwear and accessories brand in London, which I would have loved to have started in Sri Lanka. But unfortunately, I am struggling to find shoe factories at the level of design which I would require for footwear. So I thought I would start off with clothing. And from that point, the clothing's really just developed from there. And actually, I really, really enjoy the clothing market. I really enjoy working with the ladies who I work with on a creative aspect. The brand Noad Store, I'll just click onto the next page. Where it comes from, Noad is, it means grace in English. It's part of the brand's design ethos. So it's about one, graceful dresses and graceful style, the smoothness and style of movement through silhouette fabric and accessories, but it's also about giving grace to the environment, grace to the people who make the clothing as well, to make sure that they're paid properly. And actually my name Joanne also translates to grace. So from setting up the brand point of view, I really felt like it was time to, before the brand for footwear and accessories was my name, but I wanted to create a most sustainable fashion brand, which hopefully I can bring shoes into this as well along the line, but there's a lot more research required in that, from sustainable vegan leathers, for example, which I am experimenting with at the moment. So another thing I also wanted to bring to Sri Lanka was that more minimalistic style, which is a bit more of that kind of Scandinavian style, which is a little bit more my background, but also mixing it with the very tropical modernist influences. I love the architecture here, especially Jeffrey Bauer, that more minimalist style. And generally overall, I feel quite inspired by the colours within Sri Lanka. What I design here, I feel like is me personally. When I lived in London, it's very difficult to work with colour, I feel, because a lot of people just wear black. So yeah, I live in Colombo, and yes, it's about with the COVID situation now, the economic situation. I don't do fast fashion. It's not made in factories. It's all about helping ladies who work in their houses, especially single mothers who don't have an income. That's the ladies who work for the Nord store, and I pay them. Actually, they get a very good wage, and I feel very proud of that. And they also very happy with that, because I do feel that the dresses that we create with the Nord store aren't easy to produce. It takes quite a while, and I pay them a good percentage. And the way the profit splits is we all take a share each. So the lady gets kind of the same as the store commission, and I get that in between once we deduct the photography. So I feel like that's a fair way to work in everything. And it's all about a collaboration between the lady who makes it to the people who sell it. So that's the spirit of Nord, and it's all about where life plants you bloom with grace. Obviously, I'm in Sri Lanka now, and that's where I'm settled. So it's a long journey, even though sometimes it can be difficult with the situation. We still have to keep trying to move forward the best we can. So one of the things that all of the clothes are made out of is, when I first started the Nord store, I really, really wanted to have a specific fabric, which was the brand fabric. So I searched high and low through Palmanua, Petar, until I found a tiny, tiny little shop in Petar. It's no bigger than 100 square feet. And he buys all the reclaimed shirting fabric from a factory. So all of the end rolls. He has a good range of colours, which is that why the collection's very colourful. Often the end rolls of fabrics aren't in white and black. Those are the very common colours. So the brands typically developed from what's available at the time. And I only ever produced probably about 3 pieces in one particular colour before we don't have enough fabric left, and then I have offcuts left. So we call it dead stock fabric, and that's what I'm using at the moment. So yeah, it's actually the way it works with dead stock is the leftover fabrics from the factories or fashion houses. Previously, brands would hold on to that, or it would be incinerated or dumped, but now it kind of I repurpose that fabric and make it back into, hopefully, I would say the style is quite classic, the dresses. What I'm making is something that has longevity. It's not just trend. So this dress that you see in the pictures here, one particularly, and I actually shot this again in, I buy from another warehouse in Palmanua, which gets all the fabric coming into the basement from all of the factories. But that's a real hunt to go through all of that to find the specific fabric I'm looking for, which is a particular cotton poplin. So I did a photo shoot there just to kind of show like kind of where it begins from being upcycled again. But this particular dress here is called the Iris dress. And this was one of the first dresses, the first dress I designed actually for the Nord store. And it was made out of the leftover fabric. So originally it wasn't supposed to be made out of leftovers, but it kind of ended up being out of the leftover fabrics, which is why we kind of colour block them together, which uses all of our tiny little pieces up as well. And we do try to focus on zero waste pattern cutting as much as possible. So a lot of things are squares, our shapes, and kind of piece together. So that's how we try and also minimize the waste of what we have left over, any small pieces even. As we go along, I'll show you another dress that we've created from that too. Okay. So talking a little bit more about the Irish dress and entrepreneurship. Basically, this being the most popular dress in the collection, and actually a lot of customers do really like this. I was making very limited pieces because of it only being made out of the leftovers of the dead stock fabric from the main collection. So recently I decided to launch something else on my website, and the website's something new. I haven't actually launched it fully in Sri Lanka at the moment, unfortunately, because I'd set prices in dollars for globally, and then the exchange rate, it changed. That's kind of messed things up a little bit, and they also cancelled WebNext Pay. So just from a designer point of view, we have these hiccups as well when launching things. So the website, probably within the next 2 weeks, I'll promote more and to make it more visible here in Sri Lanka, but I'm focusing on more the Middle Eastern and Indian market as well, hopefully trying to get more business and foreign currency back into Sri Lanka, which obviously can help the economy a little bit, and also employ people, give them better wages, employ my students to come and work with us as well. So I've designed a digital version. Now I hope this works on the screen. Can you see that turning? The dress?
Yes.
Yeah, can you see that, Ashan? Yeah, so basically what I decided to do, I mean, to create this dress in a range of colours, physically, and photograph them is just too expensive for a new brand starting out. So I decided I would draw it digitally, and it's going onto the website digitally, and I've got 25 colourways. I've also got the short version and the version with ruffles, which is another classic style of mine. I'm taking very much two styles of dresses, and I changed those two styles of dresses to make them short, long, different sleeves, and that's the kind of core basic of the brand as well, which I think from a entrepreneurial side of things, although it looks like I'm developing a lot of ideas, it's about not changing too much as you go along as well, until you feel the need to introduce new products. So as you can see, this dress keeps changing digitally without creating too many samples. We can offer this now, hopefully, to customers as something new, where they can go onto the website and pre-order the dress, which will then be made in, I have a stock of fabric, and although it looks like a lot of colours, it's about 20 colours mixed up in different ways. And I've got the stock, which I bought the end rolls, and as we get the orders, I'll make to order those dresses. So we only really produce what the customer requires as well, rather than having 50 dresses in different colours and seeing what sells, and also that extra financial money of creating those dresses, photographing those dresses. And so yes, this is a new aspect of moving into digital fashion to be more sustainable as well, which I'm trying to kind of set the Node store as also that for the international market, especially. They're moving very much towards digital. And there's digital platforms where you can launch your brand on, such as DressX, which you can superimpose these dresses onto yourself, see what you look like, and then order them as well. So this is something I am working on from an entrepreneurial side of things too. Just give me one moment. Okay. Okay, so just talking a little bit more from an ethical, sustainable, and climate-friendly point of view. Although I am working with the cotton poplin fabric, which is an imported fabric. It comes from Korea, actually. That's where the man buys all his fabrics from. Who's getting them from the shirt factory? That's the chain. Obviously, there is a little bit of the carbon emissions there. But really, I have tried to start experimenting more with some of the handloom fabric locally as well. So if you can see along here, I have 3 types of fabric. I have the middle one is bamboo fabric, which is woven in Sri Lanka. The first dress is the cotton poplin, which is what I actually buy from the store. And the third is looking at lyocell fabric, which is a more sustainable version of viscose. So again, because creams, whites, blacks, those kind of fabrics aren't available, I did import organic cotton as well from Bali, but I did feel like, again, carbon emission, important fabric, when we have so much on the market here, is that a good choice as a brand? So yeah, really experimenting with the local weavers as well. And I've also started to work with Amma. And we have the fabric ready now, where we've done plant-based dye-in fabrics, using more natural dyes, which is something I would love to get into more. Also chatting with Dr. Ranil Senanaika regarding earth dyes, those types of things. So the brand, as we develop from, again, looking at the entrepreneurial side of things of how we can use more natural dyes, is something I really, really want to look into. So I'll just flick through a little bit as well. So yeah, this is, again, I'm going to share the website at the end. You can take a look at that. The way the brand's set up is it's not about trend, it's about classic style. So the website kind of goes in an order, almost like a rainbow, where people can choose. Again, I don't hold stock, everything's made to order. But we do have, and the patterns, as you can see, often they're just variations of things, maybe with ruffles on the outside or stitched a different way to kind of keep, one, the cost down with the pattern cutting, but also keep my ladies, not overwhelm them with too much work. I do feel that sometimes, from experience of being in the industry for 20 years, if you give somebody too many things to do, that's when you'll run into complications. So try to develop something which is your core range, your core silhouettes, and which you can keep on and get your customer into the core silhouette. And once you have that, you'll really, really have a good customer following. Like, I've had one lady buy 10 of the same dress because she, in different colorways, because she just loves that shape. And that's almost like we see it, we call it in the West as a uniform. You know, we're very much into uniforms in the West, where we have our staple clothing. And I feel like even with this particular style, I've got the one with the ruffles here. I'll just click to the next one, the orange one in the center. This for me is a very staple dress, which I wear day in, day out, which was, again, taken from the first dress I designed. And that dress, I know that I'll wear that dress for many years to come. It's stitched well because I pay my ladies well. I make sure the stitching's small instead of this really big stitching, which they use in the factories, which comes apart very easily. So it's all about quality, longevity for the brand node, and also good quality fabric. Okay. Again, something I have been trying to explore a little bit more is working a little bit with denim, when I can get some denim from the stores where I buy the fabric from. Again, like I say, black is very difficult to find, but there is a lot of end rolls of denim in different colorways. So denim is something I'm also introducing, but I'd also like to introduce this more sustainably with indigo dyes. Using more, maybe like weaving the indigo with, like, to create like almost like a handloom type denim. So again, looking at new ways to kind of repurpose, not repurpose, but regenerate, more sustainable, and add this into the collection as well. Okay, so you can have a look at the website. I've put the nordstore.com at the bottom. Let me just put that on the screen there while I just talk a little bit more. So yeah, www.nordstore.com. You can take a look at, I've also got blogs on there about being sustainable. I also wanted to include maybe some of the lifestyles of sustainable people throughout Sri Lanka. So I have an editor on board who's kind of going to add this editorial aspect to the website as well as the digital aspect. So it's a little bit more engaging. But yeah, the challenges which I would say I've faced as an entrepreneur, and this is not a challenge in Sri Lanka, I feel like it's constantly a challenge from the moment I've ever started out, is we always, it's the starting with the raw material, getting the right raw materials on a constant supply. The quality is always a really, really big challenge, and something that you have to keep an eye on as a business owner, as well as obviously managing your costs and sales. So I feel like it has become particularly hard in Sri Lanka as well with the fuel situation. We have to bulk pack things, and I'm also selling things in the Middle East as well through another store called Only Ethical. And I'm also going to start doing that with another store in London called Lumen Things, where they send the orders to me. I make the orders, but then we have to collect the orders and then ship them all together to make it financially viable. Again, because this fuel situation isn't a Sri Lankan problem, it's a global problem now. So we're constantly faced with challenges of how we can keep what we love moving forward, which for me obviously is the fashion design side of things, the creating of the patterns, the dresses, while struggling with the economic climate and the global situation, as well as the sustainability factors. And I would recommend from a business point of view to how you maybe would kind of navigate these things, as we call it a pestle in fashion marketing. Fashion marketing is something I also teach. And that's looking like the political, economic, social, the technology side of things, environment, and the logistics side of things. So it's called a pestle. You can have a look at that. But for any business or any entrepreneur starting out, really look at what are the factors that are kind of the plus and the minus, and how you can navigate and overcome those to create a better story for the brand, but a better future and a better grounding for you to start on as well. Okay, so I hope I think that's coming to about 30 minutes now. So so thank you everybody for that introduction, and I'm sure if you have any questions at the end, I'll be here to answer them. Okay, thank you. I'll just take off the screen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joanne, for your presentation and sharing of your story. So for the participants, we have a Q&A session at the end of the session, so that you could always ask any questions or any things that you want to clarify. So before moving on to our next speaker, there are a few, there's an announcement to be made. There's a registration form for the day. It's on the chat box. Kindly take a minute to fill it. So now I would like to invite our the next speaker, Ms. Draupadie Weerapperuma, for the founder, Majä, a new story. Over to you, Ms. Draupadie.
Good morning again, everyone. So like Kashan said, I am Draupadie Weerapperuma. I am the founder of Majä, a new story. And I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about the brand and how I got started. Just to give you an intro for the brand, and also talk a little bit about my journey. So Majä New Story is about how we started upcycling saris into different types of products. How it started was in 2019, I was exploring different ideas. When it was being conceptualized, I just remember looking at all the saris I had at home, because my mother and my grandmother had cupboards and cupboards full of saris. And back in the day, I used to convert them to different things anyway, but if I wanted to make something more out of it, I wanted to see how it can be a lot more functional and also have a cause related to whatever product that we introduce. So a sari is like a rite of passage in any South Asian country. So any household would have cupboards and cupboards full of saris. So what I thought was that if even you reuse 5 of the saris that are in your cupboard that are just sitting at home, you can still prolong the life cycle of the garment. In 2019, I started this as a passion project, just upcycling, reusing pre-worn saris. And since then, it's just evolved into something more, using all the fabrics from the last inch of fabric that you can into like an entire range of different types of products. But what I want to highlight here is that, yes, we do use a lot of the fabric that could be waste eventually, but we see how much use that we get out of 6 yards of fabric. So if you even right now, if you go home, you check your cupboards, you see that yourself, your mother or your grandmother would have cupboards and cupboards full of saris that are not being used. So what we put out as a message was, if you have saris, if you don't want it anymore, just either give it to us, or we can even buy it off you for a nominal amount. So a little bit into what we address from our brand is, one thing is how the fashion industry contributes to a lot of the landfill, which is, it's such a wasteful industry. And if you look at the statistics, a lot of the the fast fashion, they just contribute to so much of landfill, and there's no solution to it. We see certain companies, such as even locally, we have MAS that looks into a more sustainable future, but there's really no long-term plan when you take certain brands. So my background comes from the work, excuse me, I used to work at MAS, and I had worked with quite a few prominent brands, and I had a view into what exactly went into the thought process into working with the garment, and how much waste is used in different stages of production. So with that knowledge in mind, I just figured that if we can figure out a way to close the loop, that would be at least a small dent in what is this entire cog, which is the fashion industry. So this is what we do. This is a short video of what exactly we do. So a little into the process that we follow from end to end is basically, our plan is to close the loop. That is also known as circular economy. So from one end to the final product, we make sure that it is the most sustainable product that you can find. So sourcing, we reach out to, first it was friends and family. Initially, our initial stage, it was all about friends and family giving their excess saris that they don't use anymore for new products. And maybe if they had some kind of family heirloom, they wanted a bespoke item done. So that was the first stage of it. But as we evolved into something more, we found secondhand sellers, that is like people who are selling used saris on behalf of others. So that turned out to be an actual treasure trove, where we found beautiful pieces, beautiful fabric, and the premium fabric too. There's silks and varieties of cottons and everything that we managed to find with like very small scale vendors. Then that really works well for us, because we know that it's used, but that somebody is no longer using it. We also found that some large case sellers like from Vellavatta and Peta, they sometimes have dead stocks that are like damaged saris. And when I went to Peta and I went to Vellavatta and places to ask them if they do, to just reach out to me that I will buy it off them. So that's how we started. And now that we have this organic supply chain where they just reach out to me whenever they no longer use a sari, or they have dead stock lying around. And there's also donations, like people come and just give us like land saris at us, like, so we always make sure we check that they are in good standing, that they are not, tearing, or that they're in good condition before we use them for a product. So something I wanted to touch on even before is that the manufacturing is actually by women from different parts of the island. So we have certain products being made in different areas. That too worked out quite organically, because we originally didn't have plans to have different hands in different parts of the island. But we found that, I found quite coincidentally, when I went on a trip once to Dambulla, I found a group of women who were looking for work. So I sat with them in this area called Kalundava. I sat with them and I worked with them to work out ways that they can make like little pouches and stuff with fabric. So I first sat with them and taught them how to do it, because some of them didn't know how to use a machine or stitch or anything. But then later, they figured out ways to learn and skill themselves a little bit more. And then in Colombo, in central Colombo, there are certain women who don't have any mean of income. They can't go to work because they have children, and they can essentially work from home. So they do all the like little needlepoint work and stuff like that. So I very organically put together this team of women who now have an additional income because of the little bit of work that they do with us. Then we also make sure that the packaging is 100% 100% eco-friendly, for lack of a better term. But like the packaging is done by an organization called Women in Need. They work with women. They themselves are a different organization, but they also have a crafts unit which does 100% recycled material. So we make sure everything that comes out of out from us, is packaging included, is 100% biodegradable and also recyclable or recycled. We also, in terms of the seasons that are released every year, we limit the number of cycles. So that is, we basically want to slow down fashion. We don't want it to be fast fashion. So we make sure that we try to create customized pieces so that it's bespoke. And that way we just cater to the demand, and we don't have inventory just lying around. But we do release maybe 1 or 2 seasons, so that, you know, we have because we do have a frequent client base that constantly ask us when the next collection is and so on. So that's very promising that, you know, we already have a decent following. And the final product is we create everything from accessories to household items to clothing, so that we use almost every possible inch of the fabric that we get. So you take the saris, you use the pallu, that is the headpiece, or the borders, whatever it is, we somehow manage to use it in different ways or forms. We even have little collars for dogs with leftover scraps of fabric. So that's the extent that we go to make sure that we use every bit of fabric that we get. This entire cycle doesn't come without its sacrifices and also its challenges. Everyone has been through the last 3 years of constant hurdles and jumping through hoops. And it's not that it hasn't had its unique set of challenges, especially when you're running something so small and you're so tight for resources and talent and everything. But somehow we've managed to pull through, and it's not, what I'm trying to say is that it's not without its challenges, but if you are passionate about what you're doing, we somehow do find a way to work around it, including working ways to make sure that the women who were with us have work, they had work even during the COVID lockdown times. So that's the promising part of it. So that was, though COVID and the lockdown was a challenge, the pandemic was a real serious curveball, especially for a brand that had just launched in 2019. But we somehow managed to work through it and we made sure that the women had work so that they don't struggle through the lockdowns and during the limited time of limited cash inflow. So this is a snapshot of the products that we do. Like I said, we do products from skirts to tops to household items to duffel bags to clutch purses. It's an entire range of products that we do. But what I also want to divert your attention to is that since 2019, we have approximately converted 500 saris. These are saris that would have been waste. That is, you know, even if it sits in someone's cupboard for years on end, that's still, you know, if it doesn't, it can decay and it will be eventually going into a landfill. So we eliminate that process. And this also, the cherry on top for us is this also provided so many hours of work for a small group of women, but it was still a group of women that, you know, they've been an integral part of what the brand is about. In fact, like the pink in the brand is for the women that we work with, myself included. So what we try to do is we try to make something, where it's sort of like a trash to treasure kind of story, where we have essentially created some immensely beautiful products from these works of art that are saris. And although one of the other challenges was to communicate the story of, you know, why it's so important to use products that have been from existing products. The most sustainable product is the existing product. So the existing product is a sari. The sari is what we convert into these beautiful pieces of whatever it is. So it's a cultural conversion, but it's slowly getting there. So that one of the key challenges have been also that the fact that the mindset of the people have to change so that we get to promote a more sustainable lifestyle for the future. So the fact that we have achieved something for the past 3 years, given its challenges, I consider it an absolute achievement. Here are a few other products that we have done. Most of the products, especially clothing items that we produce, are reversible, so that you get a dual purpose piece of clothing. And anything that is anything else that we produce is from literally scrap material, so the smallest piece of fabric that is left over. So what I'd also like to add to this presentation is that I don't have a fashion design background. What I do have is the knowledge, that practical knowledge in terms of the background that I come from, which was working at MA as a strategist, because my background is actually in economics. So, but when you have a concept and you want to make it a reality, you actually, and if you are actually passionate about it, I really think that you can make it happen. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of grunt work, and it's a lot of hard work. But if you put your mind and soul into it, it can definitely be achieved. So thank you, Slyken, for having me and letting me be a part of this week and sharing the story.
Thank you very much, Ms. Draupadie, for sharing your story and the challenges which you faced while developing this brand. So now we have a Q&A session. So if you do have any questions for the speakers, you could always drop on the chat box so that we could take the questions from there. Before that, I have a few announcements to be made. There's a registration form for the day. It's on the chat box. Kindly take a minute and do fill in the questions. And I would also request the speakers if you could keep your cameras switched on during this Q&A session. So now is the time for a Q&A session. Until everyone get ready with the questions, I'll make an announcement on the sessions which we have on the following week. So the following week we have the food systems week, and we have 2 sessions, that is on the 21st of June and on the 22nd. So I would request all to join these sessions as well. And also we'll be sharing more information on our WhatsApp groups and also via email. So if there is any questions for the speakers, now is the time you could ask. There's one question from Ms. Vashita. So thank you both. How does sustainable production work with the local market pricing? Is this a challenge? Who would like to go first?
Okay, sorry, could you just repeat that question? I just somebody came into the room, that's all. How
does sustainable production work with the local market pricing? Is this a challenge?
I mean, personally, for me, it does a little bit work with the challenge, because obviously there's prices that are very, very low in stores here for, I wouldn't say similar garments, but there is different prices. Say for something that's manufactured in a factory, it has a very, very low price. And even when I got prices from factories, I couldn't believe how low the prices were. But it's really important as the brand, as like for my brand, to kind of let people know that the person who gets the money is actually the lady who makes it, not the factory owner. So I think that's where the price really changes in terms of the garment, because when somebody's paid fairly, which they really should be, and even more now, obviously with this situation, I have given my ladies a pay rise because I feel like they need to. But thankfully, I'm also doing some export, which allows me to get a good exchange rate with the rupee. So I feed that back down to them. But yeah, I feel like the local market's a challenge because we don't have a lot of tourism as well at the moment. But I do have key customers and people who are willing to pay a little bit more for the garments, as well, and to pay for the style and the signature style of Nord Store. But personally, I think that it would be great to get at least some of the tourist industry back who could support that as well, from my point of view. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Stoker.
It is a similar response that I have as well. It's not mass production in any way. Each garment is given. So how we can look at it is that it's not, every single garment is not the same. It has its different styles, the fabrics, the spin to it, especially personally with my work. So each garment is looked at in a different way and given a different kind of attention as well. So we make for Majä, we make sure that we profit share as well with the ladies that work with us. So it's a matter of giving each garment an individual price, and it is a challenge in a way, but then if we are able to, if we manage to price it accordingly, I think we should be all right. But there's always a challenge with production. If it's not in the mass market, it's not mass production, there's always a challenge. So even if it's sustainable, if it's this level of work, or even if it's something bigger, if it's not from a major company, I think it would still deem a challenge in a certain way.
Thank you very much for answering the question. There is another question on the chat box by Prasadi. I think someone touched during the presentation as well. What are the challenges faced in the local market? What are the opportunities at the global scale?
Yeah, so from my point of view, the biggest challenge, which I'm kind of ready to hit in time, I think is going to be the fabric situation. I mean, I did go and buy what I could a few weeks ago before, just to make sure I had some stock. But I think that now to try and get things woven, as people, we're really struggling to import yarns, fabrics, and the fabric situation is actually going to be quite a big problem here in time, and because of those import regulations and people not having the foreign currency to buy or being able to buy from abroad. So I do feel like that's more of a challenge to come. But in terms of actually exporting outside and selling internationally, I feel like there's opportunity there because as well when with the whole marketing side of Facebook, Instagram, you can target, say, for example, certain demographics of people living in different countries. So you can target, say, like even for the brand Majä, you can target like Sri Lankans living in Australia, for example, who would really want to buy something from Sri Lanka and help the economy out as well. Yeah, so I do feel like there's more opportunity. I'm actually getting a lot more requests recently. Even the Maldives could be a really good market, I think, for brands because of the shipping costs now. So they're not getting so many international brands, and I am having more requests for people to kind of stock the brand. So from Dubai, India, Maldives, and those more local kind of where it's not so far with the shipping, because we're also looking at the carbon footprint side of things. I think everybody is, and if it's a brand who's making in, say, for example, China, and then it ships to the UK, and then they ship back out again, it's all extra cost on top. And that's where like a garment can go from being, say, $100, $150 to $400, because it goes through so many hands. And I do feel like there is a certain price tag on fashion before it kind of becomes uncontrollable. And I don't want to be in that market as well. So I think it's all about, if we get our pricing right and pay our workers fairly, then people will, there's lots of opportunity for export, but let's hope we can try and get some fabrics. I mean, personally, I think it would be great to grow yarns here, such as hemp. I went to a conference last week where they're talking about growing hemp and veganizing like the hemp and the cannabis. And if we had that opportunity to grow the plants here and produce the yarn, that would also be like a major push forward for Sri Lanka, I feel like, in terms of being able to produce their own fabric from initial start. So yeah, that's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joanne. And Ms. Draupadie, would you like to answer the question?
I think Joanne touched on pretty much everything there, because if you take this very moment, everything is a curveball and everything is a challenge. But if we are to look at each element separately, there is also an added cost at this point, especially with the economic situation in Sri Lanka. But there's always opportunity in terms of exporting, because the product that we produce here is good quality. So long as it's good quality, there is always a demand for it. But the number of hands it goes through is immense if you go through the individual, if you go through those channels. So unless there is a more sustainable way to do it, that would deem a challenge for the time being. If not, like when it comes to opportunities in terms of the demand, it's there. The demand's always there. But cutting the middleman costs are very high at the moment. So that is at the moment still a challenge.
Thank you very much, Ms. Draupadie, for the answer. So now we are almost coming to the close of our session. So if you do have any more questions, always you could email it to us so that we could share it with the speakers and get the answers for you. So before ending the session, once again, I would like to thank our speakers, Ms. Draupadie Weerapperuma, founder Majä, and Ms. Joanne Stoker, founder Noad Store. Once again, thank you. If you have any questions, always email us to info@likeandtrust.org or contact us through those numbers. Once again, thank you very much. See you at the next session.